I am happy to be joined once again with Dr. Lyle Oberg from MYND Life Sciences. He's the CEO. Happy New Year. I know it's the end of January, but how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Shad. It's great to be alive and to be in Kelowna, BC.
God's country, they say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How's the I guess the weather and life been through COVID in Kelowna? And I'm sure it's obviously one of the great places to be, as you're obviously connected to nature, which is extremely important for, I think, people's mental health during these times.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelowna has been a godsend for us. There's
Yeah.
a ton of outdoor activity. The regulations are not as strict as to closing with what you have in Ontario. Restaurants are still open, for example. Ski hills are still
Oh,
open.
wow.
So we count ourselves pretty fortunate here.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Definitely great. So listen, I want to get you on because we had you on probably, time flies, probably close to 2 months ago, but in this psychedelic industry, 2 months feels like 2 years. But let's get a recap and some of the conversation that we've had in the past last time you're on, and provide my followers an update on your recent developments. So as I said, let's recap. You are the former Finance Minister of Alberta. So that's obviously a very big job title, and at the same time, a lot of expertise within this field. So you have a strong research collaboration with Dr. Wilfried Jeffies out of the University of British Columbia from the Michael Smith Laboratory Institution, focusing primarily on psilocybin. So saying all this, what's the latest on where you're at clinical trial process, and what are you currently working on to give, again, our viewers and investors just an idea more about your story?
Well, probably the most succinct way that I can put it is that we're beyond the if psilocybin works in some of the psychiatric disorders such as depression. We're into the how and why. And we feel that's really, really important, because if you're ultimately going to get a drug approved by the FDA or Health Canada, you do have to know how it works and you have to know why it works. And we feel we've discovered those. We've discovered the how and why. Our research has been showing some very positive results when it comes to inflammation and depression.
Mm-hmm.
And we're pushing forward very, very quickly on that. We signed our first contract research agreement with the University of British Columbia. We brought on two bright young, one a postdoc and one a grad student who are going to be working exclusively on our project. And we hope to be expanding that out as soon as possible at the Michael Smith Laboratory in UBC.
So if I'm an investor based on this partnership, how important is this? And, again, in the medical field, how is UBC viewed upon when it comes to research?
Well, I think typically UBC is certainly one of the top two universities in Canada with respect to everything. And when it comes to medical research, I think they're exemplary. Michael Smith, for example, as you probably know, is a Nobel Prize laureate. The Michael Smith Laboratory, where this research is going on, is world renowned. Just as an interest's sake, AbCellera, the founder of AbCellera, came from the Michael Smith Laboratory and was actually a colleague of Dr. Jeffies. And we all know what AbCellera has done recently.
Right.
So it's a place that that demands knowledge. A ton of research going on there, and we think that we have one of the primary researchers in Dr. Jeffies, and that he was the first professor that Michael Smith hired. So he was a colleague of Michael Smith, a Nobel Prize laureate.
How do agreements like this come together? Because obviously you look for the best, but there has to be more to the process, is there not?
Yeah, ultimately, Dr. Jeffies had to agree with it. He's the one who's doing the research. We then go and work with the university and go through the university's bureaucracy to sign a contract that allows this research to be done, that allows the information from the research and the results of the research to be brought into our company. We pay an overhead to the university, which is fair. UBC has been a very good university to work with. Obviously, in Alberta, I was in charge of all the universities for 4.5 years, and UBC has been refreshing. It's been very nice to work with.
Well, interesting to see, obviously, how things develop. I often find, like, some of the feedback that we receive from, again, some of our followers is that it's kind of painted picture where, we get these questions where, if one company say is in a preclinical trial and then another company is like, say, for example, into a phase 2, is the phase 2 like an automatic winner because they're further along? There's probably obviously more to the story, but is that really the reality? Because as you said, we have to understand the why and the how. And I would assume that obviously the first person that completes certain echelons when it comes to research isn't always, let's say, quote unquote, the winner in this. Make sense?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now in a lot of these settings, a lot of the research settings, is people are trying out magic mushrooms, psilocybin, for lack of a better term. And what they're doing is they're giving it to people to see if it works.
Okay.
And that's all well and good. But ultimately, as well as I know, that the FDA is not going to grant a license to have a drug produced if it's simply a conglomeration of what is in a magic mushroom. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, we know it works. Yes, we know psilocybin is the main ingredient that works. But again, I really stress, we need to know how and we need to know why, because until we know how and why, we don't know the side effects. We don't know what the potential usages of it are. We don't know what the best psilocybin is. For example, with us, we've received 38 exemptions under the Section J of the Food and Drug Act to actually look at 38 different types of psilocybin or analogs of psilocybin. So we're going to be narrowing that down to the 3 or 4 most promising candidates,
Right.
and then move very quickly into clinical trials.
As we look at this industry from a capital markets perspective, you could probably see in December, there was quite the little flurry of action that went on over a week to 10 days. And yes, for sure, this industry is progressing rapidly. But to manage expectations and to avoid, let's say, what happened in the Canadian cannabis landscape from, say, 3-4 years ago, if you're getting involved in this and you listen to your story, the doctors, the research, the institutions that you're getting involved, I know it's tough to predict a timeline because of the research that's necessary, but what would you say how this industry progresses from pure research and the results that hopefully everybody's looking for, let's say over the next couple of years, and how does that look?
Well, I think what you're looking at, for anyone who is looking towards having a formulary drug, which means a drug that is available by prescription, by your physician, I think you're looking at the 2 to 3 year time frame. What I can't guess and what I don't know is how many of the clinics are going to be operating in a little bit of a gray area when
Yeah.
it comes to giving people magic mushrooms and hoping that it works. And again, we are a drug discovery company, and we're going to find the single chemical, the single molecule that works the best. We'll know how it works, we'll know why it works, and we'll know who it works on. And that's extremely important. As an aside, we're also setting up a diagnostic test. So if you can imagine, instead of coming in and saying, I have this group of symptoms, therefore I'm depressed, we'll actually have an objective diagnostic test that not only diagnoses it, but can monitor improvement.
So how would
And
that work
that's
then?
critical.
How would
Well,
something like,
essentially what we're looking,
sorry, go ahead.
so what we're looking at, yeah, sorry, Shad. What we're looking at is if you find the objective cause, so you know what causes depression, and we think that we're onto that at least in certain types of depression.
Right.
Then you can actually measure what causes it. Then you can monitor what causes it, and as it gets better, you'll see that improvement. So all of these things are critically important to any disease state that you want to help,
Right.
for lack of a better term. I hesitate to use the term cure because we just simply don't know that, but I certainly can use the word help at this point in time. And for the millions and hundreds of millions of people that are suffering from depression, I think what we're doing is just a huge, huge step forward.
Well, the stat, like when we spoke, and I spoke to a Dr. Jeffrey a couple months back. If memory serves me correctly, as much as 10 to 15% of the world has been diagnosed with depression right now. Like if that's true, that's a staggering stat.
Yeah, if that's true, that's just absolutely amazing. You're talking, 5, 6, 700 million people.
Right.
And if you think, obviously there's various stages of depression, but if you think what that does to a lack of productivity, of people excelling, that they're depressed as opposed to excelling using their potential.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. It really
Yeah.
is. It's staggering.
Um, I think a lot of people want to know. And I'm sure it's still the early stages, and you have to be careful with what you can and can't say. But do you think this industry has the capabilities of changing the healthcare landscape when it comes to mental health?
I really do. And I say that not only as a CEO of MYND, but also as a medical doctor.
Yeah.
What I've seen is the huge potential here. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be in it if I didn't believe in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm here because I think that we can better the human condition.
Mhm.
And I'm everything that I've seen to date points in that direction. Everyone I've talked to, from deans of medicine of Harvard to people around the world in the last month, all agree with me that there's a ton of potential there, and we think we may be onto something very, very amazing.
That's encouraging. That's like a breath of fresh air because the world needs it, right? Last thing I wanted to ask you is you announced back in, I think it was December, a private placement offering of 8 million common shares valued at 30 cents, $2.4 million. So now that you've raised this, what's your strategy moving forward going into 2021 with that?
Well, first of all, we've started with our contract research agreement with UBC. So we
Yep.
put money into UBC to do that. We're looking at going public, hopefully in the month of February is what we're looking. We're working through the BC Securities Commission right now,
Okay.
and everything's looking extremely positive on that. And then we want to accelerate our research. We want to make sure our one job in this company is to fund the research that Dr. Jeffies and his team is doing. And we want to accelerate this. We want to get it available to the people of the world as quickly as we can, because every day there are more suicides. Every week there's thousands of suicides.
Yeah.
And if it's a big if, trust me, it's a big if, but if we can do something about that, we want to be there sooner as opposed to later.
Well, I really applaud everything that you're doing, and I really appreciate you taking the time to connect with us here today. Keep up the great work. You got a great story going here, and we look forward to obviously telling that story over the coming months and have you on again soon. But in the meantime, let's keep in touch. Have a great day, okay?
Thanks, Shaz.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Oberg.